Welcome to Pancakes and Politics Overdrive, presented by PNC Bank. Presenting partner, Business Leaders for Michigan. Today's sponsor remarks will be presented by Jeff Donofrio, President and CEO, Business Leaders for Michigan.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Pancakes and Politics Overdrive. Business Leaders for Michigan is proud to partner with the Michigan Chronicle and with Hiram Jackson on bringing these important conversations to you. The individuals that you'll see in just a few minutes and the topics that are presented really represent the future of Michigan, what we need to do to become a better state, a more competitive state. Our members, including those who are really from the largest employers, the largest universities in our state, are laser focused on how we make Michigan a top 10 state. They represent 40% of our state's economy, 500,000 employees, and more than $1 trillion of investment in our state. At Business Leaders for Michigan, we feel very strongly that our state's future is bright, that together we can make any problem disappear. That's why we've issued the Compete to Win plan, our plan for the state of Michigan, how we become a top 10 state. We hope you'll take a look at businessleadersformichigan.com. And again, thank you for joining today. Stay tuned for an important conversation.
Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
I got to say from the outset, just so folks know, we have been friends for probably 30 years. And so it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I must say, for Hiram's benefit, that we thank the Business Leaders of Michigan for generously sponsoring our Overdrive series. Gary asked, as we were getting started, about this versus Pancakes and Politics. And the viewers realize, of course, that we do Pancakes and Politics 4, maybe 5 times a year live at the DAC. But due to the generous contributions of sponsors, we can do these Overdrive series where we can have very important conversations with civic, political, and business leaders in the city of Detroit. And there really is no one more involved in business, civically, or politically than you, Gary. And I want to start with the following. You know, I had one of my companies, we had our holiday party yesterday, and it's always my role to pass out Christmas checks, which of course everyone loves that. But before people came to get their checks, I asked them 2 questions they had to answer. One was, what are they most thankful for in 2022? And then second, what are they looking most forward to in 2023? And while I do not have a check for you, I am going to ask you those same 2 questions. What are you most thankful for this year, and what are you looking forward to next year?
So what I'm thankful for this year is what I'm thankful for always, which is the opportunity to, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the world looks like, to be able to do good things, to be able to spend our time and our efforts figuring out where the chaos is coming from and what we could do to help in small ways and in bigger ways. I'm thankful for my wonderful family, for my great job at Huntington. I'm looking forward in 23 to a really good year, a better year. We all face challenges. Every one of us has individual challenges and business challenges and communal challenges, national and international challenges. But if we do our part and we are willing to contribute in the right ways, I think we can make every year better and better. And I look forward to a great 23.
Yeah, you know, you talk about finding out where the issues are and trying to help in the community. When I got out of law school at Michigan, I went to work for actually a banker who went on to own his own business, Charles Allen at Graymart Realty Advisors. You remember Charles?
Sure do.
And so Charles used to always stress to all of the younger folks who work for him that you can do well by doing good. And you've been a very good example of that. But in order to do the good, you have to do well first. And so a lot of people who may not know your history in Detroit, I know that you've been doing business in the city, again, for 30 plus years, particularly in real estate. Talk a little bit about the history of the Sterling Group and where it is today, now that you really are out of day to day and your kids are running the business.
So back in the day, I went to law school and started a law practice in Detroit and had the good fortune of falling into a real estate deal that didn't require much money or much credit because I didn't have either. And it looked like an opportunity, and a few friends of mine gathered. We raised a few dollars from some friends and family. We gave most of the deal away to get the $26,000 in money raised. And we did a real estate deal in Detroit. And it turned out to be not only a decent real estate deal, but it began to give me a picture of what good could be done in Detroit. The building was in Brush Park. It was a tough neighborhood, tough times. Today, of course, it's so gentrified and beautiful. But I started looking at the people that were living in the building. I started meeting the people that were managing the building, and I started to develop friendships in Detroit and said, this is a place that you might be able to be successful, but you could for sure do some good things. And so I slowly left the practice of law. I wasn't a particularly good lawyer, so it wasn't a big loss to the bar. And I went into the real estate business, and I concentrated on Detroit and where I could do good business, but I could find really good things to do for the community. And it turned out to be a great combination.
So, focusing on Detroit for a second, we've come a long way. I mean, we have both experienced the ups and downs of the city economically, politically, et cetera. But I think no one would argue that we're in a good place now, and everyone can see a continued path forward in terms of investment and development outside of downtown into the neighborhoods. But we still have high unemployment. Poverty rate is still well above the national average. What do you see in the next 5 to 10 years should be the focus of Detroit? And when I say that, we've done a good job at having business, philanthropy, and elected officials working collaboratively to move the city forward. So with those kind of 3 team members in place, what should we be focusing on in the next 5 to 10 years?
In a way, that question really started with Dennis Archer Sr., who was one of the great mayors in the history of Detroit, and you know him well, one of the great men in the world.
Absolutely.
And he always said, downtown's going to be okay, but we need to concentrate on the city, the community. We've got a really big footprint, a lot of neighborhoods, and we've got to figure out a way to bring the neighborhoods to be as successful as the downtown. Mike Duggan has continued that effort and is just doing a wonderful job of concentrating on the things that we need to do in order to close that wealth gap, in order to bring more and more people opportunities for jobs. People don't want handouts. They want jobs. They want to take care of their family. They want to feel like they're productive. They want to live the American dream. And if Detroit is going to continue to succeed, and it's doing well, it's going to be concentrating more and more on the citizens of Detroit, their opportunities, their schooling for their children, their job opportunities, and really the effort to bring the American dream to the heart of to the heart of Detroit. We do it at the bank. We concentrate on home mortgages. We know that in order to buy a house, everybody needs a mortgage. Doesn't matter what you pay. And in many cases, Detroit has old housing stock. They need to fix up those houses. We teamed up with Mayor Duggan to attack a neighborhood.
Is that Fitzgerald?
That was Marygrove.
Marygrove, yes.
The mayor drove us out to Marygrove. He's not a particularly good driver. He drove us out to Marygrove, and he said, this is a neighborhood that has beautiful housing stock. And people want to live here, but they need a first and a second mortgage in order to do the deal. And so in a negotiation with him, we agreed to a grant program where we would give people who wanted to buy in Marygrove a $25,000 interest-free forgivable grant to be able to fix up a home they bought and to give them the first mortgage. And we started that program, and it was completely successful. I think most or all of the houses got sold. I was at one of the closings of that deal where somebody came to Marygrove, decided to buy. We gave them a mortgage. We gave them the forgivable grant, which got forgiven. And I went to the closing. It was in one of the buildings that we have. And I said, why are you buying in Marygrove? To this really nice, bright, impressive young woman. And she said, well, I'll tell you why. She said, I grew up in the house next door. My parents still live there. And I always dreamed of living next door to them. And now this program's given me the opportunity. Amazing. She's living the American dream. And that's our job. We have an obligation as a bank, as in a community, to open our eyes to see the young people who want to go off to college, who want to get jobs. We want to give them those opportunities. We want to finance their opportunities. We want to help with small businesses. that's the key to continuing the growth and the greatness of the city of Detroit.
You know, you speak to opening your eyes and opening our eyes. You speak to opportunity. In the spring of 2020, you and several other leaders stood up with Reverend Anthony and the mayor and made certain proclamations as significant business leaders in our community as it relates to racial equity coming on the heels of what happened, unfortunately, to George Floyd. Talk about what the bank has done in that arena since that time against that commitment.
So that was a really important moment. The terrible, terrible murder of George Floyd had occurred. We, as TCF Bank at the time, we had a big effort going on in Minneapolis. It was actually, we had a branch right next to the police precinct where this all occurred, where all these police people came from. And it was an incredible moment in America. It was a terrible, terrible incident. But it was the opportunity to open our eyes and see, man, what is going on here?
Right.
And so I wrote a letter to the colleagues in our bank to talk about how sickened I was by the story and how important it is to use this moment. That if we want to do something for George Floyd, it's to use this moment to reverse some courses, to fix some things. And I sent it off, and somehow Reverend Anthony got a copy of my letter, and he called me up and he said, "Can I circulate this?" And I said, "Yeah." And as a result of that, Mayor Duggan and Reverend Anthony called a press conference, and there were 9 or 10 great leaders of Detroit, CEOs and chair people of all important companies. And everybody stood at the podium at the city county building and made commitments that we're going to do it differently. And each company did. And our company said, what can we do as a bank? What would be the right reaction for us? And what we did was we announced a $1 billion community fund. And then as a result of the TCF Huntington merger with my partner and friend Steve Steinhauer, we turned it into a $40 billion community fund. And that money is used across our regions. $1 billion of it is for Wayne County and Detroit to enhance mortgage programs, to do grants, to use our resources to do more and more, to concentrate on the areas that need it, the low income areas, the mod income areas, the places where we have to invest. And banks are the ideal place to do it because banks really run the financial state, the country, because they have the money to be able to loan for small business, for houses, to buy a car, everything that you would need, that you would want, that you don't have the equity for, you've got bank funding for, and that's our job. And if banks are doing the right things, as you said earlier, we can make profits, we can satisfy our shareholders, and at the same time do really good things. And I believe your shareholders are enhanced, and you'll make more profits if you do the right things with your money.
I agree. So you mentioned the merger, and there's been just in the industry throughout the country as of late, there's been a lot of M&A activity leading up to COVID, at least. You've built a beautiful new headquarters, which I had the benefit of touring last week. Talk about the importance of having that physical presence right downtown in the central business district of Detroit, and what does that mean to the bank as a whole, being here in the city?
So this process really began when we were a chemical bank. We went from First Michigan to Talmer to Chemical to TCF to Huntington. When we were Chemical, we were headquartered in Midland, Michigan, and the city had put an RFP out for its banking services. And we wanted to respond. We weren't the biggest bank responding. We were a moderately small, medium-sized bank. And we wanted to respond. And we sat down as a team and we said, what is the right response to win the RFP, to get the city's banking services, but to do the right thing as a bank? And we responded by saying that if we win the RFP, we will move our headquarters from Midland to Detroit, Michigan, and we will build a 20-story building in downtown Detroit. It was a little bit of hopefulness. We didn't really know what we were going to do, but we knew that we needed to do it.
Right.
And the city council, the mayor believed in us. They gave us the rights to the city banking business, which turned out to be great for the city and for us. And we moved forward. We moved our headquarters to Detroit, and we promised a building, and we began the process of looking for the property and designing a 20-story building. And as you saw just recently on your tour, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you there. We completed a 2.5-year process of building during COVID, on time and on budget. a 21-story building. It's 10 stories of parking and 10 stories of office and a beautiful rooftop for the community and for our company. And what it did was it made a statement.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first high-rise building, 13 stories or above, built in Detroit in 30 years since One Detroit Center. And it was a statement for Detroit that
Mm-hmm.
you can put your co-headquarters in Detroit. We're co-headquartered Columbus and Michigan, and you can thrive. You
Mm-hmm.
could do really good business. And people come to that building and they say, this is really a landmark of what Detroit could do. And there'll be other companies that will do it. Ford Motor Company doing the train station
Mm-hmm.
development. Steve Ross and the Illiches doing with the University of Michigan, the Innovation Center. The Dan Gilbert world of accomplishment. The many, many people, including you, including where we're standing.
That's right.
We're standing in Paradise Valley that nobody thought would come back.
Right.
And the vision that you've had, and Hiram Jackson has had, and the mayor had, and the folks that you've done it with, it's just remarkable what, if we can collaborate and work together, what can be done. So putting a 20-story building in downtown Detroit at the 50-yard line, Main of Detroit, looking at Comerica Park, we're certainly overshadowing Comerica Park, and being able to bring people to Detroit and say, you want to work here and you want to be here, and they really do. It's become a tremendous opportunity. We're hosting events there every day. I just had a request for a wedding up on the rooftop.
Very
I said
nice.
It's a little cold, but we'll think about it. So we're thrilled that we're able to do it.
So how have you managed through, you and I talked about this a little last week, but how have you managed through the audience? Because a lot of us who are business owners, not necessarily struggle, but grapple with what's the right balance of people coming into the office, working from home, like you, but on a much smaller scale. We moved our office here to Paradise Valley. We built a gorgeous office. And so now we have the office. Now, how do we encourage, incentivize folks to come in? Because much of the work that our staffs do could be done at home, but you miss out on the collaboration and the team building that you get, and the ideation that you get when people are actually in the space together. So how have you balanced that? You got a 20-story building, 10 stories of office. Is it full? Are people coming in?
So that's a great question. Those of us that have spent our careers in offices, in buildings, and we're not the smartest people in the world, but one thing I learned is that when you're together in the same space, when you're in a building together, the collaboration, the opportunity to get to know each other, the ability to work together when you're in person, to walk over to someone's desk or someone's office and chat about something going on, does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that although we don't want mandates, we want people to feel that they have the right to do what they want. We don't want to tell people what to do. We really are encouraging people to come back to the office because they miss that social interaction, that mental interaction, that interplay that is going to help them to be more creative. When you're on a Zoom, it's good, it's convenient. Zoom is very convenient. Teams is very convenient, but it doesn't give you that interaction. So what we're doing is we built a great building with, a great Starbucks in the building, with great office space, parking inside the building, right in the center of the activity of Detroit. And we're encouraging our team as much as possible to come start a few days a week, put your toe in the water, then come 4 days a week, and really start to rebuild that internal camaraderie that comes when everybody is together in a building. And I hope that America will see that again. I hope the world will see it again.
Black folks are now, as generations have progressed, there are a lot of Black folks that have fairly significant businesses and investments, and they're starting to have kids that may be interested in getting into the business. And I know that you've done a very good job, Ellie and your other kids, getting them involved in the Sterling Group, which you founded, and now they are running, given your new position. Talk about the importance of exposing your children to business. I'm sure you did not direct them that they must come into the business. I'm sure it happened organically, but how were they prepared? And how can we as Black entrepreneurs, those of us who are, prepare the next generation to be in a position to step into the shoes to the extent they would like to?
First, I think it's very important to communicate with your children why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important. and what you can accomplish, not just financially. You don't need to be the wealthiest person in the world. You need to be an accomplished person who's done some really good things. And in our case, my children saw what was happening in Detroit. They loved the opportunity to collaborate in a city that there's always new good that can be done. And they watched it. They watched it as children. I didn't force anybody to come home. They all went different places. They all ended up out of town. They found their brides. They got married. And they looked at Detroit and the state and said, this is a really good place to raise children. It's a modest community. It's an opportunity to place ourselves in a situation where you're just not working every day to make profits for yourself. You can work every day to do well, to take care of your family, to build your foundations, but also to really accomplish good things. And my kids saw that. And they came back and they love being in Detroit. They love the opportunity. They love seeing the growth. They love the camaraderie. They love the partnerships. And I think if you inculcate your next generations into the good parts of what you're doing, they'll feel the same, because you're raising the next generation to do good things. And in our case, our kids saw it. They liked it. They enjoy it. They love Detroit. They wouldn't do business anywhere else.
Good.
And they just love being here.
You speak to foundations. You are very involved in your religious community, as you're well aware, having gone to many Black churches. Black folks are very tied to their church. It's a place of refuge and safety and oftentimes direction. Talk about the importance of your religion as relates to, and your faith as relates to you as a businessman and as a husband, a father, etc.
So I learned early on that I'm not the only one with a religion, and I'm not the only one that's faithful, and I'm not the only one that goes to a synagogue or a church every week, and that there are really a lot of good people who are attached and focus on their relationship with heaven. And I found that I could do all the things that I wanted to do, but always maintain, number one, the obligation to be faithful to heaven, to be faithful to the faith that I have been taught. And it only enhances my life. So I have certain restrictions, food restrictions. I keep kosher. The Sabbath restrictions. I don't work on Saturday. But what I found is that, and your father taught this to me, that people respect that because they also have their faithfulness to their religion. They also have their faithfulness to building a family that is attached to the opportunities to connect to heaven in a really important way. And it's only enhanced our lives. And the next generation has followed that. And next generation is just as connected or more connected faithfully. And I have found in Detroit uniquely that people really respect that. They feel it, they understand it, they go to church, they pray to the same God, they understand that there's a creator in the world that put us all here. And this is all placed in a way that we should be working with each other. We should be enhancing each other. We should be taking care of God's children. And that's really the way to improve the society we live in.
So improving the society in which we live, improving the city, again, it takes business leaders and entrepreneurs. It takes the civic nonprofit environment, and it takes political leadership. You're involved with or aware of, both here in a micro local fashion in the state and even federally, what's going on politically. Talk about, we've had conversations about the timing of political leaders. I think I mentioned to you that, in my opinion, when Coleman Young came into office, it was the right time for that sort of leader. It's the right time. My father came next. It was time for his sort of leadership. I think that the way that Mayor Duggan came into office, it was very obvious that people thought it was time for his style of leadership. As you look forward, at the local level, the state level, what are like those key characteristics that you think are important as we look towards a next generation of political leadership?
So a big key to it is the civility opportunity. People have to learn that it doesn't matter if you're on the Democrat side, the Republican side, and independent side, you're placed in that position in order to accomplish and allow the people that you are serving to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a different view of what that means, but everybody knows what it means to progress. Your dad and Mike Duggan are the perfect example. They had no personal interest. No, it was really altruism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough job to be a politician. I don't have the stomach for it. I love, helping people to be politicians, but
Right.
I never wanted to be in that place. And the reason is because it's tough every day to wake up and know you're really not doing anything for yourself. You're not getting a bigger paycheck. You're getting a smaller paycheck. All these people that we're talking about, your father, Mayor Duggan, Gretchen Whitmer, Jennifer Granholm, the people that we have supported, they know they could go off and do something much more valuable for themselves.
Absolutely.
They can make a lot more money. But they recognize that they were in a unique position to do good things. Those are the kinds of leaders that we need to look for. We need to look for leaders who understand the only way to accomplish is in a bipartisan way. The only way to accomplish is with civility. The only way to accomplish is to listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that are important to you? Here's the things that are important to me. And if we look at those leaders and if we see the way they have behaved and we find more and more like them and we grow more and more like them, the city would be great, the state would be great, the country would be great, and the world would be great,
mm-hmm.
because those are the kinds of leaders that we need to empower in order to help us to achieve the things that we want to achieve.
You started off the conversation mentioning that we are in fact here in a studio in historic Paradise Valley, in the offices of a historic media enterprise in the Michigan Chronicle, one of the oldest and continually running printed papers, Black owned in the country. And you have had a partnership with Hiram and the Chronicle, students wired for achievement and greatness. And you've had some phenomenal success in your support of that program. Talk about what that program is and why you remain so excited about it.
So Hiram and I grew up in the business community together. We were both young entrepreneurs. We were in the same building together. And we always talked about what our responsibilities would be when we get a little more successful. And when I went into the banking business and Hiram went into the Michigan Chronicle business and became a great publisher, and this is a very important organ of the city and
mm-hmm.
the state and the country, we started to talk about what could we do to collaborate, to use both of our resources and our interests to do something really, I would say, progressive and great. And I don't know who came up with it, but we just started to talk. Our teams got together and we said, really the best thing that we could do is find ways to enhance the young people of Detroit and their careers and grow them. And we came up with this idea to promote a college scholarship for good high school kids in Detroit. And it wasn't my idea, but they coined it swag. I didn't have any swag at the time. They taught me how
you got it now.
They taught me how to get it. And it was Students Wired for Achievement and Greatness. And we've given well over $1 million to young high school graduates to be able to go on to college. We engage them. We give them opportunities to be interns in our company. We've hired some of them to work for the company, and we have followed their careers. And we have seen that with a little boost,
mm-hmm.
special young people can really enhance themselves, their families, and their careers, and then the community. And we've seen just some marvelous young people. I think it was Hiram's idea not to reward the 4.0 students, but to look for the 3.0s, the
mm-hmm.
3.2s, because the 4.0s generally get the scholarships.
Right.
But what I have learned, first, I was not a 4.0 student. What I learned is that these young people are as special, smart,
mm-hmm.
intelligent, and hardworking. And investing in their futures was the best thing that we could do to collaborate. And it's been a joy watching them, watching the young people grow. Hiram and I sit in on the interviews. We see the special qualities of these young people, and all they need is a little boost. And we provide a little boost. We're doing a small thing. They're doing the big thing by committing themselves to a 4-year college or a 2-year college or a trade school, and knowing that they're going to do good things in the world. And it's been thrilling for us to see it.
Let me just say the following in closing, in that, and I would say this about other companies, not just Huntington, but I would just encourage the viewers and just the general public to pay attention to those that support our community, those that put their money where their mouth is, those that live and build their businesses and employ people here. And that is with whom we should be doing business. That is with whom we should be banking, buying our cars from, etc. And so, really on behalf of Detroit, Black Detroit, the Michigan Chronicle, Real Times Media, Hiram Jackson, thank you for the work that you have been doing and will continue to do in the community.
Thank you, Denny, and what you have done and what your family has done. I tell people all the time, I hope you find this a compliment. The Archers are the Kennedys of Detroit.
No, thank you.
They really have done something that is so unique and so special. And the fact that you're following in your father's footsteps in a different way with a different path and being so upstanding, successful, but totally giving back is a remarkable way. You talk about fathers and sons and second generations and first generations. The Archers have mastered it. Probably came from your mother as much as your father.
Probably.
You've done it. So it was an honor to be here and to continue to do good things with you. We are Detroit, and we got to keep doing what we're supposed to do.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Bless you.
Pancakes and Politics is brought to you by PNC Bank, General Motors, presenting partner, Business Leaders for Michigan, Platinum Partners, Walker Miller Energy Services, Rocket Mortgage, Signal Restoration Services, and DTE. A Real Times Media production.